pleased to call this subcommittee meeting on conservation, climate, forestry, and natural resources to order. And I'm also grateful to Ranking Member Marshall for his partnership in organizing today's hearing on Western water resilience. I know he shares my concern about the unprecedented drought the West faces, especially as it relates to the declining water levels in the Ogallala aquifer. Our purpose this morning is simple: to sound the alarm about the water crisis in the American West. The West has not been this dry in 1,200 years. 1,200 years. And if we don't get our act together here, it's going to not only put our Western agriculture at risk, but the American West as we know it. My state sits at the headwaters of the Colorado River, which starts as snowmelt in the Rockies before cutting across 1,400 miles to the Sea of Cortez. The Colorado River Basin is the lifeblood of the American Southwest. It provides the drinking water for 40 million people across 7 states and 30 tribes. It irrigates 5 million acres of agricultural land. It underpins the West's $26 billion outdoor recreation and tourism economy, and it is running out of water. The 2 largest reservoirs in the basin, Lake Powell and Lake Mead, are at the lowest levels they've been in since they were filled over 50 years ago. Lake Powell has dropped more than 30 feet just in the last few years. The water crisis is not limited to the Colorado River Basin. The most recent data from the U.S. Drought Monitor found that more than 50% of the entire contiguous United States is experiencing severe drought. And right now, more than 75% of the western region is seeing severe drought. These conditions threaten to put farmers and ranchers out of business, threaten the communities that rely on water to support their families and their livelihoods, which is every community in the West, and frankly, threatens our way of life in the West. Farmers like Joel Draken, a dryland wheat farmer near Akron, Colorado, he told me he's had to tear up 400 acres, nearly a third of his land, because there wasn't enough water. He's also had to sell 1/10 of his herd because there's not enough grass to graze his cattle. Paul Boucher is a rancher in Grand County, Colorado. He remembers when water from the Colorado used to flow 6,000 cubic feet per second. Today, he said they're lucky to have 1,000 cubic feet per second. Harrison Top, a fruit grower from the North Fork Valley, told me he's lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last 3 years from drought. There is no longer even a slim margin for error in our production practices, he said. A farmer in the same county, James Henderson, said it used to take 1 hour to irrigate his soil. Now it takes 6 hours because the ground is so parched. And the main reason for all of this is climate change. Rising temperatures means less snowpack in the Rockies, which means less runoff to feed our rivers, and that means less water for farmers, for ranchers, and communities across the West. And on top of that, the rising temperatures mean that whatever water makes it into our rivers evaporates and gets absorbed into the ground more quickly because it's so dry. This is a 5-alarm fire in the American West. When hurricanes and other natural disasters strike the East Coast or the Gulf states, Washington springs into action to protect those communities. That's what a federal government is supposed to do, to bring the full power and resources of the American people together to help our fellow citizens. But we haven't seen anything like that kind of response to the Western water crisis, even though its consequences, I would argue, are far more wide-reaching and sustained than any other natural disaster. And that's just water. I haven't even mentioned how climate change is incinerating our forests and blanketing our communities in smoke from wildfires. 3 of the largest wildfires in Colorado's history were all in 2020. The day before New Year's Eve, the Marshall Fire destroyed over 1,000 homes in Boulder County, Colorado in 24 hours. It was sheer devastation. Last year, communities in my state had some of the worst air quality in the world because of wildfire smoke. I'm sad to say this, but northern Utah and Colorado on the same day had the worst air quality in the world, worse than Beijing, and that led Senator Romney and me to take a raft trip in Moab to talk about water and climate and forestry, which I deeply appreciated. There are days when people can't go outside. They can't open their windows. They can't see the mountains. The dangerous air pollution puts Coloradans' health at risk, and it's left people across the West to reckon with a sobering possibility, a future where this isn't the exception, but the norm. I deeply worry that if we don't act urgently on climate, it will make the American West unrecognizable to our kids and to our grandkids, and I refuse to accept that. And the people of my state refuse to accept that. They have a reasonable expectation that our national government is going to partner with them and help protect the American West. So my hope is that our hearing today will help shake the complacency in Washington and create the momentum we need to act urgently. And I'd like to thank the witnesses who are here today for sharing their expertise in this area. I look forward to hearing about what they're seeing and experiencing on the ground and the ways they are trying to manage the crisis. We need to act now to bring immediate relief to these Western communities, and we simply can't address the Western water crisis in any meaningful way unless we come together in a partnership. To underscore the crisis at hand, I have a map of the current U.S. drought monitor. Senator Marshall's staff has brought it in testimony from the Colorado Water Congress, the Family Farm Alliance, the Colorado Association of Wheat Growers, Trout Unlimited, and a rancher in Grant County, Colorado, describing the situation we face in the American West. I ask unanimous consent that they be entered into the record. So moved. That was fun to do. Thank you. I'd like to also say thank you to Senator Bozeman, the ranking member of the Agriculture Committee, for being here. It means a lot that you would be here, especially coming from Arkansas, a place where they don't quite have the same drought conditions that we have. And it's too much water, not too little. But let me turn it over now to my ranking member, the distinguished senator from Kansas. Thank you.